So here, our opponent has to pull out 3 cards in their hand to defend against this. Good thing is it guarantees that our opponent cannot consistently or guarantee their break right next turn. They have to top deck it. So, pull out the grade 1. Do they have a PG and a grade 3? Or do we just win? Do we just win? It's nice.
Vanguard 0.
Hey yo, how's it going everyone? Entropy here today with another video. As expected, today is the day finally we're going to go into the second deck profile of this month, set 11. We're going straight into Aqua Force's Transcore Glory Maelstrom list. Now, if you have checked in to my playtesting stream, you will know that I have been playing quite a lot of Aqua Force and Kagero, particularly this list. If you want to see more of this list, of course it's not exactly the same list since I have done more testing and had more games and experiences since, but if you want to check out my rough work, day 1, what were my thoughts, go check out that stream. Link will be in the description box down below, but this is my list right now. So roughly it's going to be similar. You are going to play Eric as you usually do in Aqua Force. So many of your grade 3s have so much value. Whether that's getting your Transcore for the break ride, getting your Glory for the break ride, for the end game, or even, unfortunately, even if you do pick up that Diamantes, it does give you access to 4th attacks, so multi-attacking combos, and ignore intercepts. So definitely, Eric, whatever grade 3 you pick up, it has value most of the time, and it's really good because this deck's end game is really reliant on 2 key pieces, Transcore and then Glory, right? If you miss one or the other, you're gonna have a rough time. So getting that extra grade 3 consistency built in with the grade 3 searcher is definitely very valuable, and I will insist on you playing Eric if you are playing TransGlory. Next up, we have the grade 1 lineup. We're playing for the new PGs because we are a break ride deck. We do want to play the Pashels, the new one. The old one is still decent, but it means that you can't break ride. It doesn't really synergize best with break ride decks, so that is just how it is. We are playing 3 of the Mercenary Brave Shooter. Skill is front row. During your turn, if you have 1 or less rearguard and rest, this unit gets +3. 10k attacker. If you put it behind the Basil or Diamantes, you can attack with the Basil or Diamantes first. Move this into the front row. It still swings at 10. Still eliminates most of the grade 2 intercepts in the game. Very, very nice. And can act as a 7k booster when you need it. 4 strategic commanders. Reliable strategic commanders. This is the 6k self-damager. You might be wondering, well, we are already playing the new PGs. Do we really need self-damagers? Well, that's because we are playing Glory Maelstrom, which is not just a limit break. It's a limit break 5, right? So it's an ultimate break. We don't have the Maelstrom to proc it at limit break 4. So we do need the reliable strategic commander to make the system, the end game more reliable. When we can proc it, when our opponent is giving us that 4th damage, we still want to be able to break ride, and we still want to be able to threaten our opponent. Maybe push them over, nudge them towards not giving us damage even. When they see that reliable strategic commander, a lot of people just wimp out sometimes and not give me that 4th damage, even though sometimes I don't have that combo piece. So it's not just there just to keep your endgame consistent and reliable, but it could spook your opponent out, and definitely I do think that is very valuable. Next, 2 copies of Light Signals Penguin Soldier. On play Soul Blast 2, draw 1 card. I think that this card is worthy of of 2 ofs. In the Maelstrom build in my deck profile a long while back, I argued to play it at 1 because you don't really want to Soul Blast 4, because you do want to keep that grade 3 in your soul as cross-ride numbers, right? And letting you use Glory's Ultimate Break at 4 damage. But with this list, you don't really need to rely on that previous the previous grade 3 in the soul anymore. You know, you break ride with a Transcore. You don't really need Transcore in the soul anymore, so you can actually use Penguin Soldier twice, provided you put the Eric back into the soul, provided you broke ride or reroad. So definitely nice to have. 2 copies also means that you're more often going to draw into it, so that's the case. If you don't like playing 2, you can definitely play 1 more Brave Shooter. You can play around with the grade 1 slot, of course, other than the Sentinel. I do think that these 3 are probably your go-to picks for grade 1s. You have some lists that play the 8Ks, you can do that. You have some lists that play the Cynthia, the on hit, discard one, draw one, the filter. I do think that these are valuable. I just want to keep things simple. Focus on your game plan. Each unit has its values, and that's just where I'm coming from. For the grade 2 lineup, we are playing 4 10Ks. Waifu is Laifu. 10Ks, good on defense, good on offense. 4 Twin Strike Brave Shooter. This is basically the grade 2 version of the 7+3. During your turn, if you have 1 or less other rearguard and rest, this gets +3, so it's a 12k attacker. Lets you hit opponent 11k or above Vanguards without having a boost. Maybe 12k intercepts. If you're seeing a lot of Murakumo, they are more commonly playing those 12k intercepts units, grade 2s. So this card lets you swing at those without any boosters. Definitely very helpful. And again, as did the grade 1, synergies really well with Basil or Diamantes if you choose to play them. 2 Tier Knight Lucas. Now this is your generic on-hit Canvas 2 draw 1. You will notice that this deck doesn't really have a lot of opportunities to actually draw cards other than Lucas and Penguin and I guess the Eric. You really do want to draw into your pieces. You are really combo and game heavy, combo centric deck, and you do want to see your pieces. Aqua Force, one of the things that you will notice is that you are very heavy on the aggro. If you don't have the resources to replenish them, if you don't get lucky and hit those draw triggers early on, you will suffer. So the 2 Lucas is just there, lets you comfortably draw one if you need it. If you don't, it's still a 9k grade 2, hits other 9k grade 2s as well as units below 9k, of course. So it's just there. Counterblast 2 you usually use once a game. Do want to be careful with your counterblast. You want to save 2 for Glory. You want to save 1 for Eric most of the time whenever you need it. So usually use it once, and that's about it. And then we're playing 3 of the Veteran Strategic Commander. 3 is okay. You can even consider 2. One of the problems with this is that it's an 8k. It's kind of clunky. Doesn't really hit numbers. We're not playing the 6+2s or anything that gives it a little buff. But overall, I do like the consistency of having the self-damagers get those ultimate breaks out on 4th damage and then seal off the game when I can. Having the option is always nice. And yeah, if you want to see more plays with these self-damagers, go check out my video on that. I will put that in the description box as well. I hope you've seen it. I think it's quite useful, intuitive, and there's a reason why we call them self-damagers instead of limit break enablers, because that's a totally different thing. Even though self-damagers do help you do that too. For the grade 3 slot 4 Transcores, obviously, when break ride but +10. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, your opponent chooses a card at random from their hand other than the Sentinel and discards it. If they did not discard one, this gets +10, plus crit, words, and your opponent cannot activate Sentinels until the end of battle. This is big. One of the interactions is if your opponent only has Sentinels in their hand, they cannot discard any. So your Vanguard gets +1 crit, and your opponent cannot activate any of their Sentinels. Even if they have 4, and they have 4 Sentinels, 4 cards in hand, they cannot discard any of them. Your Vanguard gets +1 crit. They cannot use any of those 4 Sentinels, and then you just seal the game right there. It's really nice way to bypass it, especially when your opponent's card's hand size is low. It actually does come in play sometimes, and it's super fun. Of course, generally speaking, your opponent is going to have other cards other than Sentinels. Maybe a grade 3, and that's why you proc it out, and then hope you can use your Glory to seal the game. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, it gets +3 as well, so it's a 14k attacker by itself, hits cross-run numbers. If you put a 7k booster, it's a 21k, so that's just how it is. Generally speaking, you are going to put the Eric or the Penguin Soldier behind the Vanguard, so you hit 19. Still good enough numbers, and since you're going to break ride on top of Transcore anyways, your Vanguard column is going to be big, so you don't really need to worry about that, that number hitting in the middle column. For Glory, obviously, the deck's name is TransGlory, right? Limerick 5, when this attacks the Vanguard, counterblast 2, +5, +1 crit. Until end of battle, have your opponent discard a grade 3 at random. If they don't, they do not. Their opponent's Sentinels do not activate. So it's basically you break ride Glory onto Transcore. You force your opponent to guard with 3 cards in the hand. If not, they die, and it's really cool. Of course, if you do want to tech in the Maelstrom, you can do that too. If it is cross-riding, it becomes a limit break 4 instead. So that's a good thing if you want to play the Maelstrom build. Personally, I don't really like it. It means that you are having a clunky winning image. Do you want to go for Transcore? Do you want to go for Maelstrom? Transcore doesn't really go well with OG Maelstrom anyway, so. 4 Storm Rider Diamantes. First attack, it gets +3. At the end of the battle, it can switch the position with your rearguard in the same column. Presents multi-attack options. Ignore intercept as well with the second skill. Once per turn, count +1 to have this unit ignore intercept when attacking. If it is the first battle of that turn, until end of turn. So you can use this to ignore intercepts. You don't really even need to use it to enable multi-attacking if you don't have the units. Even by itself, you can ignore intercept and swing as 12 to Vanguard. Especially useful when your opponent's at 3 or 5. Pull up those PGs or put your opponent to lethal range with your Glory Maelstrom. And one last card, the last card, Revon, obviously. As its name suggests, is limit break for when this unit attacks a Vanguard. You have 3 units as rest in your front row. Count +1 to get +3/+1 crit. I like this card. It's really cheap, count +1 for an extra critical. The 3k does come in handy to help you hit numbers as well. If you have that 7k booster, 21k is nice. Very rarely do you use this card. But it is just that one tech slot. The 11k rearguard is still nice. And that extra crit option, sometimes you need it. And especially if your opponent's running out of cards already, you don't really need to rely on the Glory. You can go for the last card Revon. So that is basically my list. You know, this tech slot, I think you can play around with. This tech slot, I think you can play around with. If you want to play Basil, you can do that. Just personally not a big fan of it in this list. And of course the grade 1, I do think that this lineup of grade 1s, you know, this 4 units is pretty solid. But you can play around with the quantity. I do think that's the area where you can play around with the list and see what you like. So I guess without further ado, let's go into a game. So how's everyone finding Aqua Force? I'm sure people have seen TransGlory, people have seen Ripples. Personally, even when Ripples were revealed, I'm not a big fan of Ripples. But surprisingly, they can still do some damage, although it does require a lot of RNG on their side, personally. But yeah, personally, I think that TransGlory is actually a really solid deck. If you looked at the JP tier list, which, you know, if you're looking into investing in future sets, you should, just for another opinion or perspective with experience, a lot of them don't really rate TransGlory that high. They rate the original Maelstrom list higher. But one of the positives about playing TransGlory is that it plays against that Link Joker stigma much better. You don't need that 4th attack. You don't really worry that much if your rearguard columns are locked or whatever. So it's just you have a much straightforward winning image as well. You don't really need to worry about doing these shenanigans. What if our opponent hits a trigger, then all our multi-attacks don't work? TransGlory is just get to Transcore, get to 4 damage, break ride, and then crit face, go, and then pull 3 cards out. So pretty straightforward this way. We are going to play against an OTT with that Misaki skin. Have you picked that up yet? Let me know down below. We put the Diamantes back. We don't really need it. We'd much rather have the heal in the deck than Diamantes in our hand. Have the Transcore though. We have 1 of each grade, so we're comfortable here. We have 3 self-damagers, so the grade 1 self-damager, not really that useful. Much rather keep the Penguin. Don't really want to call the Penguin out yet, so just put the Eric behind the Vanguard, which I usually do. Hit the numbers you need. Hit the draw trigger, that's nice. Very nice. We have a lot of grade 2, so that's super solid. I know some people, they don't like the grade 2 self-damager and puts the Basils instead, or extra 10Ks, and instead maxes out the 4, also maxes out the 4 strategic commanders. Personally, when I tested it, you know, when you have not as many options to proc ultimate break, your deck might not be able to finish off the game fast enough sometimes. Sometimes your opponent puts you to 4 and then puts you to 6 the next turn. So from personal playtesting, I really value the self-damagers. But if you are seeing a lot of people not, you know, playing around it that well, or always putting you at 5, then maybe you can choose to alternate away from the self-damagers as well. They're using the Stellar Magus, the Magus deck. Adds that PG to their hand. It's okay, our deck can punish PGs. Alright, we still see that Silent Tom. Pretty staple for OTT decks, so be careful. Glory Maelstrom this 1 down. And we draw into the Diamantes. So when do you use the Eric? Oh, your grade 2 turn when you're missing a grade 3. And the turn before you think you need to break ride. So generally that's just how it is. I don't really want to clog my hand with grade 3s. So yeah. Let's ride the 10k. 14k number hits numbers. And especially if you do need the card draw for the penguin, then you can consider using the Eric earlier as well. Not really necessary right now though, I don't think. Let's call this out. Battle. As you can see, one of the problems with the self-damager is that it's AK, as we explained. So it does inhibit some aggressive plays sometimes, but in terms of the end game, it is more valuable. I guess it's a trade-off. Do you want more early game aggression or late game consistency? And it really is playstyle dependent, I'd say. Ooh, Goddess of the Sun Amaterasu with the crit trigger. Core Magus, 9+3, but they're not a Magus Vanguard. Crescent Magus. Ooh. So they actually showed us that the other grade 3 is also a crit. So that's a fun fact, I guess. So now we can expect that the break ride is going to be a critical. So it's probably a 9 crit build now that we see 3 different grade 3s with critical trigger on it. See that healer trigger? Perfect, perfect. Alright. So we're going to go into Transcore. Ooh, Transcore into Transcore is also alright. Forcing our opponent to discard 1 while still pumping our numbers to 21. Plus, call up the penguin just to draw 1. Again, this deck doesn't use soul other than for the penguin. So we draw into the glory. Very good, very nice. What should we do? Guess we can call this out, Put us to 4, so if we do hit a heal trigger, or if our opponent hits a heal trigger, we're still gonna reject it. So, there we go. And then, I guess here we need a trigger, so. Heal trigger. Perfect! Wow! Everything's going so well today. Alright, awesome. Boing. They hit the heal. Unfortunately, if we didn't heal, we would reject their heal. But things are working. We put the heal back as well. That's a 33% chance of putting the heal back. 66% chance of putting a trigger back. Really good odds. I like where this is going. Wow, doing really good. So yeah, I mean, being away from 6 as much as possible is just nice. Especially since we do know that our opponent is playing Silent Tom. So that's the very nice swing of the game. Wonder what our opponent's gonna do. They skip the ride phase. Do they play the self damager for the Amaterasu? I guess not. Skip the main phase as well. So maybe they have a couple PGs in hand. Maybe they're trying to save the grade 3. And definitely one of the things about this deck is its fear factor as well. So yeah, we confirm that this card is a crit, as the Crescent Magus did provide for us as well. So if you are an OTT player, if you do like main Magus, be careful what you're declaring, because the declaration list is only cards that you have in your deck. So that is something to consider. When you reveal a grade 3, it reveals the trigger alongside with it. So if you value that information, especially if it's not an open deck format like an organized play, when it's ranked, be careful what you're declaring. And in this case, if you're playing 9 crit, then I suggest you just not swing Vanguard to rearguard, generally. So yeah. Opponents probably rethinking their life choices with that swing and wondering what went wrong. Well, Silent Tom, that's the second one. All right, so we're still at a 2-3 winning kind of situation. Of course, we don't have as many intercepts, but still feel quite confident with our situation right now. Don't really feel inclined to really call anything out because we do want to keep that self-damager for later. So let's just swing 2 times to the face, put our opponent to 5, ideally, and then kind of widen the damage gap. Putting them to 5 also makes better use of Diamantes as well, since it guarantees to pull out a PG. Or, you know, deal lethal, so. Pulls the PG out of their top deck, so they only have 3 at most. Do you know that our opponent's OTT player did play the Lozenji Magus, so they have that heal as a starter, shuffling it back to the deck, so they still have 3 heals targets left. No reusing healers though, since the Lozenji Magus did end up in the damage zone. Going back to the Break Ride Hexagonal Magus, do they have enough time to actually use the Break Ride though? That is the question. Can we finish them off next turn? Opponent is playing a mix of Floral Magus, a mix of Pentagonal Magus, little bits of this and that. Generally speaking, stick to what you have, stick to a core. I do think that if you're playing an archetype deck, especially, you know, using cards like Crescent Magus, you do want to stick to a specific name. So yeah, avoid using the Amaterasu. I guess it's a nice tech choice to search for whatever you need, but I would avoid doing that personally. Opponent hits 2 crit triggers. Wow. Puts us to 5 damage back. Alright, alright. So, how do we handle this? How do we handle this? Of course, we're gonna Break Ride, right? No questions asked. We're gonna go for TransGlory. Diamantes. I'm gonna put this over right here as an intercept, and then call Transcore. 25. Yeah, that's gonna hit numbers anyways. So 11 to face. Because no matter what, our opponent is going to be at least 16, at most 21. So that Revon isn't going to help us hit Vanguard anyway. So I might as well just have a intercepts right there. Maybe help us out a little bit. So here, our opponent has to pull out 3 cards in their hand to defend against this. Good thing is it guarantees that our opponent cannot consistently or guarantee their Break Ride next turn. They have to top deck it. So pull out the grade 1. Do they have a PG and a grade 3? Or do we just win? Do we just win? It's nice. Pew! And that's it. Do they have 2 heals? No, they don't. And that is GG. TransGlory. You see how devastating that is? Especially in the Break Ride format when grade 3s are just so much more valuable in your hand. Glory just has so much more value in this game. TransGlory pulls out 3 cards in your opponent's hand or tells them to just go die. Really, really nice combo. Nothing much else I want to say. It's a really solid deck. Do try out this list if you have the chance. We still have the rental period, I believe, as of the day of recording of this video. So do give this deck a chance. If you don't, there are still a lot of alternate options in terms of, you know, the grade 3 lineup, the grade 2 lineup, the grade 1 lineup, basically the whole deck. There's just a few tech choices here and there. If you have any ideas, any techs that work particularly well for you, any strategies, any tactics, comment down below, let me know, let everyone know so we can crowdstorm, brainstorm any ways to make this deck even better. Alright, so that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, like the video. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button. Help me out there. I really, really appreciate you all for tuning in. For the next video, it will be tournament part 2, so look forward to that. And I guess that is all for today. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.